105 The Bull, Springfield's classic country. Well, you know him from the songs Red Light, Whatever She's Got, Nights on Fire. His catalog is amazing. And he's on the phone right now. Missouri native David Nail. David, how are you?
Man, I am just chilling, just waiting to see how loud my baby girl's going to be when my wife just brings her in the house to just saw him pull up.
Did you and the family have a good Halloween?
We did, man. I think my son had a little hard time committing to an outfit. He had an Iron Man and an Iron Spider, and it ended up being Iron Spider. But right up until the last minute, I was a little nervous about if he was going to be able to make a decision. He was pretty indecisive.
Two tough decisions for sure. How's the tour been going for you guys so far?
Man, it's been good. You know, we've had the last 2 weeks off, and the last, I guess we were supposed to be out. I had to move one show that was actually outside of Nashville here to December because I had gotten laryngitis from being out, I guess just being out in Arizona too long, out in the elements, and it just dried me out so much. So I ended up having a show outside of Atlanta that we ended up doing that weekend, but it was just one of those things where I probably had one show in me, probably didn't have two shows in me, so the Atlanta one was going to be a little harder to move, and so we moved the one outside of Nashville to December where don't have anything around that. So I had a lot of friends and family that were coming into town, so it was good to be able to move that to a time where they could actually come back and see.
So you have a new album out this Friday, Boot Hill 2021. The featured single, St. Louis, is awesome. How did that song come to be?
You know, it was one of those things a lot like most of the other songs I guess I've written by myself where, you know, you sit down and you start strumming the guitar, or you sit down and start just tossing around ideas on a computer, and you don't really know, what in the world's about to come out. And then most of the time, you know, when you start something, you're so the competitive nature is just you're in it, and so you're not really taking a moment to kind of observe what the song's about or how personal it is or how deep it is or any of that. It's kind of like you against the song, and you're just trying to win. And that particular song, once it started, it was very evident what it was going to be about. It was just about trying to figure out how to tell a story. You know, obviously a title, St. Louis, is a very general title. It could be more or less about anything. So it was just about trying to create a story that was interesting enough to keep kind of coming back to the St. Louis. And so, you know, people ask me all the time, is it something that happened to you? And it, I guess in some ways it did, but in some ways it's not completely and totally accurate. I think it's bits and pieces of different stories that I just kind of created into one song.
So you released Boot Hill 2020, obviously last year. Now you're releasing Boot Hill 2021. Will the Missouri Boot Hill theme continue with any future releases?
I don't think so. I think this was, you know, it's funny because last year before the COVID and everything happened, I more or less had the first Boot Hill EP and the second Boot Hill EP done, and there are about 4 or 5 other songs that were in the mix that, you know, didn't make the cut. You know, as a result of COVID, everything just kind of shut down, and so I just kind of threw out the Boot Hill 2020 as just kind of like, hey, here's something, and instead of just going a year without releasing anything. And I was just so, you know, angry with everything that was going on and not being able to be on the road and just the state of the world and everything. I think I just wanted to get something out there, and so I kind of rushed it, and but I was super proud of it. I mean, I love the songs, and then it was a lot easier to at least record the new Boot Hill EP this year, and I took a lot more time. It's a little bit more, it's a little less acoustic. I know St. Louis is still pretty sparse, but the other 2 songs are a little bit more elaborate than maybe the first Boot Hill EP. So it was just, I'm not going to say I'm not going to continue the theme, but I don't expect to. I've actually, you know, I think that the beautiful thing about doing EPs is for somebody like me with ADD is I can do something and then kind of move on to whatever's next. And I don't have to stay too much into okay, hey, I've got to write and record 5 more songs to make this an album. It's kind of like once you're done with it, you can kind of just move on creatively. And so I think, musically and just I've kind of already began to explore some different things. And I've been writing actually a ton. So I don't know that it will be so, if suddenly 4 or 5 songs come out and they're obviously like back home type songs or where like it's stories or things that are kind of inspired by how I grew up, then hell, I guess they're going to be Boot Hill 2022, but I'm planning on it.
How special is it for you to have your kids featured on these releases? I know you've got to be pretty proud of that.
Yeah, it was the first one was so spur of the moment and so organic that it just kind of happened. I was just sitting at the house one day and I just started asking. Lawson actually is a very deep kid to be almost 6 years old. He's very sensitive and he's just very intelligent. He asks a lot of questions that most 5-year-olds don't talk about, and I guess, he would have been 4 when we would have done that. And so it was just one of those moments where he's asking a lot of serious questions, and I just, pressed voice memo recorder or whatever it's called and started talking to him, and there was actually a ton of stuff. I mean, I probably could have just did 4 or 5 more of those just from different things he said that were super special. And then when it came to this one, my wife was like, you better have Lily Kate to be a part of this next one. And I was like, well, Lily Kate's she's a bit of an actress in her own right. It's hard to kind of get her to focus on doing something particular. She likes to kind of do it her own way. And so I was a little worried about what in the world I could get her to do that would be usable. So I kind of let my wife kind of be in charge of having her. And she had her say different things and asked her a few different questions to try to accumulate enough to use. And then Lawson ends up closing it with a really special thing that he did when my grandfather passed away this past summer, that they played at the funeral, and that's kind of the last thing that we leave people with.
So changing gears just a little bit here, you recently met Randy Travis. How special was that for you? It was both like, I just got goosebumps when you said that. It was both like really amazing and, a life-altering experience. And it was sad, obviously seeing the condition he's in, you just feel sorry for him, you hate it for him. But he's just got this smile on his face and he seems very at peace and very happy. And I think that as a result of the community really rallying around him and championing him and paying a lot of tributes. I mean, the event I was at was a Whiskey Jam anniversary show that he just kind of showed up as like a favor or kind of a thank you to Ward Gunther, who's a really good friend of mine, and Randy was a real huge influence on him. And so some people kind of got together and got Randy to come out and end the show with Forever and Ever Amen. And so he just happened to be there. And he was just backstage, and it was so bizarre. I remember Coach Swindell was back there, and a bunch of songwriters, and Frankie Ballard, and then, Randy Travis is standing amongst us, and we're just all kind of looking at each other like, what the hell are we doing here? This is very bizarre, but very awesome in the same time. And, kind of without, telling a sad story, when my Mamaw passed away several years ago, one of the things my mother asked me if I wanted was did I want her CDs. And the reason why she asked that is because, back in the day, it was very popular to get all those, like, CDs in the mail. You buy, like, 15 for a penny or something, and, they'd send you a bill for the shipping and handling, and it was like $100. Yeah.
But my Mamaw did that, and one of the first few CDs she ever bought was, like, the first 3 Randy Travis CDs. So, like, I would go over to her house, and she had this little jukebox thing that you could cross the street with, and I'd take these CDs, and I'd just go and listen to them in my room. And so that was just a huge memory for me, and I didn't end up taking her CDs because it was just too emotional for me. And so when I saw him, that was the first thing I thought about, and I'm sure she was looking down at me going, well, of course you get to meet him all these years later.
Chatting with Missouri native David Nail. He's got a show Thursday night at Midnight Rodeo. Ticket info, thebull1051.com. We are really looking forward to this concert. Now, David, you've been to Springfield numerous times over the years. Where's one place that you've got to go every time you come to town?
Well, I've been coming there for over 20 years. I had several friends that went to school there, and So I'm a huge Mexican Villa fan. I to this day say they have the best cheese dip in the history of the world. I'm about to forget. I got to go to Hertz Donut. That's the spot. Yeah, all of my guys found that. That's the craziest thing. You know, the last few years, donut places have become like all the rage. A couple of my guys, like, they Google them every city we're in, and they found that place. And I went on our way there. We passed this, like, really super cool T-shirt place where it was just all these T-shirts that kind of had Missouri references. But, of course, Hertz Donut was the spot everybody was super excited about. So anytime the guys talk about great donuts, I have to remind them, I'm like, you remember that place in Springfield? And I think there was maybe one in Omaha or somewhere else we were at where they got to have them again. But it was, I guarantee you that will be the first thing somebody mentions that morning we show up.
It's hard to beat that Homer donut at Hurt. It is so good. Now, David, the concert Thursday night, it's going to be a full band with you, right?
It is. Everybody, we're bringing everybody. And, you know, the Midnight Rodeo is a cool place for me because that was one of the first shows I ever went to. As a fan, I saw Thomas Rhett's dad, Rhett Akins, and he called me up on stage to sing a song with him. So,
really,
anytime I'm there, like, it's just so surreal because I'm like, I was on the stage as an 18-year-old kid. And Brett actually remembers it. I've had several conversations with him since where he remembers that moment just because it was one of his last records had come out, and I just started shouting out all these songs, and he was just like, who in the world is this kid down here that knows every song already? And lo and behold, it was me, and it was just a super cool moment. One of those just like, you know, it's so funny because I'm so anxious about being on stage and stuff, but back then, you know, this guy tells me to come up on stage, and I didn't hesitate. I mean, I hopped up there, and which was pretty remarkable considering I'm sure my jeans were about as tight as possible.
I legit had no idea. That is pretty crazy. So, David, you've got the new album coming out Friday, Boot Hill 2021. Where can our listeners check that out and pre-save it?
At least initially, it will be released strictly digitally, so you'll be able to stream it on all the platforms that people stream music, you know, these days. And I think a little while I'd like to do kind of a Boot Hill vinyl of both of them, you know, and, you know, you kind of do a side A, side B and put both covers on there. So that's just something that hopefully I can do in the future if it's not too terribly much work and too terribly expensive, but it's just something I think for my kids, especially because that's Lawson on the cover of the new one, you know, sentimental-wise, is something I'd like to have.
Well, David, we look forward to seeing you Thursday night at Midnight Rodeo. All the ticket info that you will need, thebull1051.com. Check out the new album also from David Nail. It's called Boot Hill 2021. You can pre-order it wherever you get your music at. Features the new single, St. Louis. David, as always, it's great talking with you, my friend, and we'll look forward to hanging out Thursday night at Midnight Rodeo.
All right, buddy. We'll see you there.
When I think about St. Louis, I can't help but think of you.